What's up, everybody? Coach Cox here, and today we're going to be continuing with our striking. As a quick review, can anybody remember the 3 ways that we talked about in the last lesson on how to strike? Great. I bet you probably said, from doing our last lesson, we learned that we could strike with our hands, we could use our feet, we even used all sorts of different body parts to strike. But do you remember what the last way to strike was? It was kind of a different word, and that's what we're going to be working on today. Great. I bet a lot of you might have said the word implement. Now, implement is just like a fancy word to mean like you're striking a ball or object with another object. I know we went over some last time, but can you think of some sports or activities where you can strike using an object? Nice. So you may have said tennis, you might have said ping pong, we even have golf and hockey. Those are all different ways that we can strike with an implement, and that's what we're going to be working on today. Before I show you what you can use as an implement, I would like to do just a little bit of a review on striking with the implement because there's different ways to strike. So here I have a paddle, which kind of resembles a tennis racket or ping pong paddle that you would use for those sports or activities. Now, I would like for you to think, and if you want to pause the video at any time, that's okay too, to give you a little more time to think before I give away all the answers. Here's what I want you to think about. What are some ways that you think that you can strike using this implement right here, or any type of implement that you could use in an activity or game? I bet probably the first one that you might have said, which is probably the most common, I see this a lot, where you can strike, and I call this an underhand motion. Sort of like you're tossing underhand, you're stepping out with your opposite foot, and you're coming from down low to up high. So that is one way that you can strike with the implement, and it's called underhand. Could you think of another way to strike using an implement? Great. I bet a lot of you probably said it's kind of like the opposite. So instead of coming from under, you're going to come from over. And this is called overhand. And you're probably thinking, wait, this looks a lot like I'm throwing a baseball, throwing a dodgeball, because I'm coming from up high. So it's really the same motion as throwing, except now you're just using an implement. So we have our underhand and our overhand. There's one more way that you can also strike using an implement. Can you think of the third and final way to strike? Awesome. I bet you probably said you can strike from going side to side. So instead of coming from down low or up top, you're actually going to swing from side to side, side to side. Yeah, that kind of probably resembles more of like, what you would see like in a tennis match when they're hitting the ball back and forth. Now, the way that you strike side to side actually has 2 different names. So the first one is when your forearm is facing your target, you call this a forehand swing. But if I'm coming from the other side and the back of my forearm is facing the target, this would be called a backhand. So we have a forehand and we have our backhand. So those are going to be the 3 ways that we're going to work on striking with the implement today. Now I know some of you probably thinking, well, Coach Cox, I don't have a fancy foam paddle like this at my house. What can I use to strike? So I'm going to give you some examples here. Here's one that I made, and I'll get a little closer so you can see. All I did was use a paper plate and a spatula, and it kind of makes a tennis racket or paddle. And I just take the spatula to the back of the paper plate. If you don't have that available, and you want to work on a little muscular strength and endurance, here's a frying pan, and smaller would be better, and please be careful, don't swing this all around the house because we don't want to break anything or hurt anybody, so please be careful with the frying pan if you choose to use that. And last but not least, you may also just use a notebook. So you could just use this as a replacement for your implement right here, a notebook. As far as a ball or equipment's concerned, just like in the last video, a balloon works best. Now I know you don't have a balloon. Oh, quick science question for you. So I have a little balloon and the big pink balloon. Which of these would you think would be the easiest one to strike? Let's see if you can guess that. Nice. So if you chose the pink, you would be correct. And the reason why this is easier to strike is because it's going to move slower because it has more air. It's also larger, so you have more area to strike. So, but I know some of you don't have a balloon. Things you can use instead of a balloon. If you look here, I've actually blown up a latex glove here. This is still going to be a little harder than balloon, but that'll work. And if you don't have that, you can also use this, all I did was loosely balled up a sheet of paper. Now this is going to be more challenging, but you can still definitely strike using a loosely balled up piece of paper. So what I'd like for y'all to do, stay tuned for the next video because I'm going to go more in depth on our striking. You can follow along with Coach Cox, and hope you enjoy, and looking forward to seeing you in the next one.